That's a good show tonight. Now, let's begin with this new extensive report from the Anti-Defamation League in the United States of America, which has announced that the degree of anti-Semitism that exists in the world is rather shocking. Oh, what great fun. Now, the ADL, it's a Jewish group that, well, frankly, it depends on there being anti-Semitism for its very existence. In other words, if Jew hatred disappeared, these guys will be out of business and they wouldn't be able to raise any more money. I'm sorry, but it's true. They've done some very good work over the years, but they also make too much noise over the small and even the wrong issues, I believe. And they sometimes, well, they just get it wrong. Now, in this case, the results are curious in some cases, but not in others. Gaza and the West Bank reveal a 93% rate of anti-Semitism, leading me to ask, what's wrong with the other 7%? I mean, you actually like the Jews? The lowest rate is Laos with 0.2%, but do people in Laos actually know who Jews are? I mean, have they actually ever met a Jewish person? Otherwise, well, the English-speaking world has a generally very low anti-Semitism rate. Western Europe is low. Eastern Europe and Spain and Greece are pretty high. Africa depends on whether the countries are Christians when it's low or Muslim when it's quite high. The Arab and Muslim world is, of course, incredibly high. There are some interesting insights, though, and ones that might concern the ADL and certain other Jewish groups. In Sweden, which is really rather anti-Israel, the anti-Semitic rate is tiny, around 4%, meaning that the notion that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are the same thing is apparently not true. Sorry, guys. Canada, however, apparently has an anti-Semitism rate of 14%. So that's around 5 million. About 5 million Canadians really dislike Jews. Really? I mean, really? I asked Jewish people around the office today. Yeah, Jews run the media, so there are lots of Jewish people at Sun News. And virtually none of them had experienced genuine anti-Semitism in Canada ever. Laurie Goldstein said to me that 40 years ago he used to get into fights because he was Jewish, but that was 40 years ago. Look, there will always be nasty, small-minded people. I'm sorry, they will. They dislike Jews, blacks, gays, anybody, everybody. That's part of life's rich pageant, I'm afraid. We live in a fallen world, and broken, hateful people will always be with us. But they don't matter very much, you know. They tend to be losers, pathetic, sad. Look at this video. It's from the youth wing of the British National Party, a very, very small fascist group.
Who is responsible for the uncontrolled mass immigration into Britain? Who is responsible for the dumbing down of our education system?
Who is responsible for giving away our independence to the European Union, letting them pass our laws, control our borders and destroy our industries?
Who is responsible for portraying racist attacks as only being against non-whites?
Not us. Then who is responsible? The answer, an unholy alliance.
The banksters who want us to be debt slaves after their private banking schemes have put us into unpayable debt.
The heartless Zionists, whose interests are foreign interests, who send our soldiers to fight and die for private profit of greedy politicians.
Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I mean, it's like an ad for why you shouldn't indulge in inbreeding. Anyway, anti-Semitism is only an issue if it leads to Jewish people losing jobs, being attacked, suffering because of racism. And that is incredibly rare in Canada, and the US, Britain, Australia, Europe, most of the Western world. And part of this report depends on the nature of the questions being asked. And if you can obtain the desired results, and you generally can if you twist the questions. If you scratch a wound long enough and hard enough, yeah, it will bleed. But there's something else going on here. While a few North Americans who dislike Jews might be annoying, the real threat is within the Islamic world, where organized and dangerous Jew hatred is overwhelming, expanding, violent, and backed by armies, newspapers, television networks, and mobs. In much of the Islamic world, the Holocaust is denied. Jews, Israeli or not, are blamed for the world's problems. Verses from the Quran and examples from Islamic history are used to justify systemic anti-Semitism. This video is, well, it's entirely typical. Ah, lovely. So let's stop playing stupid games here with false accusations about wonderful, tolerant countries like Canada and the US and Britain, and instead let's name names, name religions, name people, and name causes. The truth can hurt, but it is still the truth.
Jews have been persecuted across the earth for good reason. Jews being lame and stuff.
All Jews carry gold in a little bag around their necks.
The Jews took all the money away.
Jewish people don't have rhythm. Jews can't play basketball.
Jews cannot play hockey.
Jews can't be paladins.
Jews can't be pirates.
You f***ing Jews ruined Christmas because Jews don't believe in heaven.
Let me emphasize, Alex Blumenstein, one of our producers, put that together, Blumenstein, so blame him and not me. Sam Ashkenazi from B'nai B'rith, you were sitting here being very patient and tolerant of me. The monologue, did that make you angry?
You know what? First of all, the video I got to say about the UK party, I didn't know if that was a joke in the beginning. I mean,
it's like
almost,
a parody.
They're almost parodying themselves.
The BNP is a very, very, very small party, and that's probably the most attractive, normal bunch they could find. Imagine what the rest are like.
You know, I don't even want to.
Let's talk about the survey. I spent half my life in Britain and half my life here. Jewish father. Yeah, at high school, there were a couple of kids who were anti-Semitic. They tended to get punched in the face. Really, I mean, they were the idiots. They were the losers. Have I ever been denied a job? Have I ever been physically attacked? Have I really suffered in any way? No. I mean, if someone doesn't like a Jew, that's their issue. I don't really care. If a Jew suffers because of that, and the idea that 14% of Canadians, 5 million Canadians, have a real problem with Jews, you don't believe that, do you?
Well, you know, I think you're right to question this survey. I mean, we have to look at the total numbers of people. So they surveyed about 97 different countries. Yeah. The total sample size, as listed on the website, was about 50 to 60,000 people. So that's leaving about 500 people, give or take, per country. So, you know, in terms of sample size, it's not representative. I mean, you have to extrapolate to get the results.
So why bring it out? I mean, it's had a lot of coverage.
I think there's a couple of things we need to understand. So, number one, the questions that are laid out, they asked people 11 different questions. Yeah. These are the stereotypical, you know, things you hear about Jews. Jews control the media, Jews control the banks, etc. Do you agree or not agree with these statements? First of all, a number of people may say yes to any number of these questions, not feel themselves anti-Semitic. So they might not feel that they are, you know, an anti-Semite. They don't personally hate Jews. They just feel that this is an accepted fact, which is a large number of people sometimes have these views. The second part we have to understand is that, again, this is an extrapolation. So I think what our interest at B'nai B'rith, I mean, we conduct a study of anti-Semitism, our annual audit, and I think this sort of corroborates some of the things we're finding. Now, we're not going to use this study as the gold standard. We do our own study. No, we do our own study much larger.
If you said, are Jewish people fairly influential in media? Yeah, they are.
Look,
do they control the media? Of course they don't. That's rubbish. But the question is so absolute. Let me ask you, I'm not sure if you've read the survey, but do you know the country in the Middle East with the lowest anti-Semitism rate?
I do. It was Iran. I'll choose Iran for 56%.
Now, in Iran, which officially denies the Holocaust, Jordan doesn't officially, would never dream of doing such a thing. Even countries that have been at war with Israel don't deny the Holocaust. So, I mean, what do you construe from all these? This seems very confusing.
Well, I think it speaks to really to the disparity in a lot of countries, using Iran specifically, between the regime and the people.
Yes, I agree with that.
No one has an issue with the Iranian people. I have many friends who are Iranian. They left before the revolution. The most warm, amazing people, you know, that you've ever met. But the government, obviously, you know, a theocratic regime oppressing their own people.
What about what I mentioned about Sweden? And Norway and Denmark are also very low. But Scandinavia, there's a strong, less Denmark, but certainly Sweden and Norway, a strong anti-Israeli sentiment. A lot of complaints about them. Sweden, 4%. That's one of the lowest in the world. Only 4%. All the rest of the people in Sweden said, no, this is all untrue, yet they're really quite strongly anti-Israel. Well, I'm always hearing that anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are the same thing.
Well, okay, well, again, we'll have to break that into two parts. Number one, it correlates to the first thing I said, where a lot of people might feel that some of these things are true, but they don't necessarily think they're anti-Semitic. Just as you said, there might be a lot of Jewish producers or people who own, you know, a network or on a network. Doesn't necessarily mean the Jews control the media. I mean, that's obviously ridiculous. So they might not think that having, you know, a total number of these views, believing these canards, makes them an anti-Semitic person. Number two, with regards to anti-Israel, you know, again, I think it comes from a lack of understanding about really their beliefs. They have a lot of, you know, arguments that they're hearing, a lot of propaganda, I would even say.
Yeah, but so I don't think that answers my question, because we are told a great deal that, and I've always rejected. I mean, look, pretty much every anti-Semite hates Israel.
Yes.
But many critics of Israel are not in any way anti-Semitic.
No, of course, not every critic.
Jewish
Of
people.
course, not every critic.
But Sweden, that is constantly now being attacked for being so anti-Israel, seems to have an incredibly low rate of any form of anti-Semitism. But isn't the question itself anachronistic at this point in our history? We're not living, thank God, in Europe in 1940. These are not the pogroms of 1890. This is a different age, a different climate. Interesting, Spain, which for so long lived under semi-fascism, they have these... They throw bananas on the field at soccer games to black players. That's the country that it has evolved so little. Greece, with all of its problems, I mean, it's so inward-looking. But most countries, this is an issue that's been dealt with. It's the Islamic countries that we have to look to. And it's not just the Arab world. Outside of, if you look at Muslim countries in Africa, compared to Christian countries in Africa, the rate of anti-Semitism much, much higher. You mentioned to me before the show, they didn't go to Pakistan.
No,
in India, the rate was 20%. I was surprised. I thought it would be even lower. It's a very pluralistic nation.
Of course.
In Pakistan, it wouldn't surprise me if it was up there 70, 80%.
I know Tarek Fatah could definitely speak to this issue, he, being the expert on Pakistan, but I think with regards to the Middle Eastern countries, it has a lot to do with education. Some parts of the survey talks about where are they hearing this information from. And a big chunk, we know in the Middle East, we've seen, there was a school in Toronto that featured material from Iran that talked about being fit for jihad and, conspiracies and evils of Jews. I think, unfortunately, in certain Middle Eastern countries, a lot of it is coming from the educational institutions. So kids are being brought up with these attitudes.
I'd like to ask you more, but yes, I've just had a special message from the super rabbi in the sky who has said to me that as he does control all of media, it's time to tell you to shut up.
Well, I just want to add for the record, there are Jewish pirates. So there were, rather.
Jewish pirates?
There were Jewish pirates. I just want to add for the record.
Well, I'm sure there were. Jews playing basketball. He obviously hasn't seen Maccabi Tel Aviv play basketball, has he?
No, they're good.
There you are. Thank you very much indeed.
For sure.